This brings us to the first CODO step. Get familiar with the players. Now, if you want to be successful in your negotiation, you need to consider each and every party that could support or hinder you closing the deal. This is tactical stuff, okay? You need to learn how to read people, watch body language, understand subtext, read between the lines, and basically be that guy from the show that can tell if someone is lying just by looking at them. A big part of the game, that is negotiation, are the people that you have on the playing field. You have the expected players, right? The people you expect to be there. Those are your starters, let's say. That's your client. You expect them to be there. The other broker, the other salesperson, their client. You've got the mortgage lender, loan officer, right? The attorneys, the escrow agent, etc. Those are people you expect in almost every deal, every negotiation to get to the closing, right? We're used to that. We can handle that. But then, all of a sudden, this one deal comes along. This one game. And the sellers, they now have a money manager. Ooh, a business manager. And the property has tenants. Interesting. And they don't want to behave. They don't want to leave. And your client now has in-laws that are helping with a down payment. And cannot stand to have their darling child living anywhere near a dog park. There's lots going on here, lots of new players. What's happening? Because while you would like the mother-in-law to be on your team, we all know how that can go. Right, mother-in-law? So, I start by researching my star player or players. And then I move on to those supporting players. The folks who sit quietly on the bench until the best moment to jump in and mess everything up. And when this happens, sometimes it's hard to figure out what team you're actually playing on, let alone how to play for the other side to win. You have all these forces pulling you in so many different directions, and it can just make your head spin, right? You're like, where did all these people come from? Weren't they on the bench? What's happening right now? I've said it a million times before, and at this point, I should just plan to tattoo it on my forehead. People hate being sold, but they love shopping with friends. So, meeting a new client for the first time and asking about their hobbies, their kids, their pets is going to open so much more than just shaking their hand and asking what their budget is. This information can be as valuable as gold when it comes time to close. And we start closing on day one. And then there's you. Yeah, look in the mirror. How you define your role on the field is shaped by everything the other players are trying to do to win. Sometimes you're an agent. Yeah, but sometimes you're actually a member of their family. Sometimes you're the parent. Sometimes you gotta be their friend. Sometimes you're their therapist, you're a marketer, you're a problem solver, you're an interior designer, you're the American Dream coordinator, and I can go on and on and on and on and on. So, what I do in these situations, and you have a space for this in your workbook, is I write down a list of literally every person involved in the transition, down to my client's toddler and the building's superintendent if they have one. And I write down what the best case scenario is for everyone. It also helps me understand who I might need to reach out to potentially save this deal that I could forget about later on when things might get hairy. Toddler gets a playroom, right? Mother-in-law never has to see a dog again in her life. That's what she wants. You get the point. You want to know the players, all of them. What do they want? What do they not want? You want to be clear on everything. I write all of this down on a line with the buyer far to the left and the seller all the way to the right. Got two end zones. And everyone along the way in between. I list all of these players and all the results that they want. And what often happens is I start to see overlaps and concessions that would help to bring any of those parties closer together. Knowing what the goals of all the parties are allows me a huge amount of insight into how we're going to get to that finish line. And then I write out what would happen if this negotiation went perfectly. What's the perfect game plan? Where do I think the seller wants to get to? Where do I think the buyer wants to get to? Where do I think the market is? Where's the discrepancy? Where's the margin of error going to be? How can I use the concessions and overlaps to get everyone into the sweet spot? And when it's all right in front of me, I can take a step back and I can look at the big picture, making it easier for me to facilitate everyone getting what they want. But to know what everyone wants, I also need to know who I'm up against. And more on that next.